Welcome everyone to another episode of Podium Stories. Today we have a very special guest in the building. Today we have Luca Massaro. He is the founder and CEO at WePlay. WePlay was founded in 2012 as the first performance-led marketing agency dedicated to sports. They're a full-service agency that specializes in helping sports brands to achieve their digital and marketing growth objectives across emerging direct-to-consumer revenue streams. Luca, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Pleasure to be here, Marti.
So I have a very important question. What do you think about Mourinho? That's my first mandatory question that I have to ask.
I am a big fan of personalities and characters in sport, so I love Mourinho.
Okay, perfect. Because if you said no, then we have to cut this interview right now. Because as a Barcelona raised but Real Madrid fan, I'm a big Mourinho fan. But jokes aside, I love to have a conversation about you, about marketing in sports, the sports industry. I know you started working at Chelsea, and then before moving to WePlay, was there an inflection point that made you believe it was the right time to make that transition, or was that it was the right opportunity to go after? Do you remember why you decided to make that change?
Yeah, so there was probably 3 inflection points, I'd say, in the last decade. The first was when I was at Chelsea Football Club, and at the same time I was blogging on my own site. I am luca.co.uk, and 2010, 2011, the industry was still quite immature. And when I say the industry, I mean this intersection of where digital and sports align. And I was one of few who were commentators on social media around the developments, the innovations, and I was guest writing for a few publications, and that led me to companies would contact me via my social media asking if I would consult, if I would speak, or if I would want to come and join their company. So that first inflection point was, I think, me understanding the demand for the types of things that I was talking about. And the pace at football clubs and federations can be quite slow, naturally, right, particularly when you look at digital. And that's just largely because these organizations make their money from the media companies and the commercial partners. What they make directly from their fans, etc., for a lot of the biggest companies isn't a significant enough amount of money for them to change their whole strategy. But I was very passionate about the transformation that was happening in the world of marketing. So the first inflection point was probably around 2012 when I decided to go traveling, figure out what I wanted to do next. The second inflection point was 4 years after starting the journey, when Facebook changed its newsfeed algorithm and it reduced its organic reach down to less than 2%. Prior to that, you could get great success publishing on Facebook without needing to spend money with Facebook. And that was a big inflection point, because I went from running a content marketing business to needing to look at how we would be able to generate return on investment for our clients measured. So that was the second inflection point. The third one was recently with COVID. And prior to COVID, we were already well established in the world of digital marketing, in the world of direct consumer marketing in sports. So tickets, hospitality, retail, subscription video, etc. But what COVID did is it accelerated the conversation around the importance of digital, right, and the importance of your audience. So all of the other distractions, or all of the other historical necessities, the over-reliance on TV money, the over-reliance on sponsorship money, when those companies are now not looking to pay you the same amounts of money because the product is very different because of COVID, you have to look within and say, how can we generate success ourselves? So the third inflection point was just recently. That's meant that we've doubled down in our message.
Interesting. I definitely want to talk about the changes in a COVID world in sports. Before we go into that, a lot of my peers, including myself, who run businesses, but we're big sports fan, and sports is a big part of our lives. Uh, and maybe I'm talking for myself. When we would have loved to do sports-related business, but we never thought that there was a big enough market there where we could run larger companies. Was that always a clear possibility to you? And did you know that there was always an opportunity to combine sports with business and be profitable and run a large company?
At the beginning, no. At the beginning, I think like um, a lot of ambitious people early on don't do the market research.
Right.
Right. You have an idea, you're excited, you just do, right? And you learn on the job. And at the beginning, I'm a big sports fan, big into digital transformation, saw that there was no agencies in inverted commas at the time that did what I think that what was needed. Over time, you recognize that let's call it what we would say a niche within a niche, right? So the niche is already sports marketing, and the niche within sports marketing is digital, right? So we're already reducing our market significantly. I didn't know that 8 years ago, right? It took 4 years probably to think that in hindsight would have probably done things differently, built a business plan, market research. We would have probably ended up being more sport and entertainment, right? And looked at other verticals like movies or video gaming, etc. But now looking at it in reality is that the depth that we've gone to by staying true and staying focused and being positioned as an expert in digital, while the market wasn't there, the market has now moved to where this is where the interest is.
So you've grown with the market, right? As the market has grown, you guys have been able to stay focused with that. Mm-hmm. I love that because I bet it can be scary at the beginning to be like, is this market big enough for us? And there are probably other competitors. That said, most sports-related agencies that I've seen either focus on the tech side and the development of digital products, or on the brand building, content creation side. Can you tell us a bit more about your performance focused approach and how that differentiates you and how you're able to deliver more data-driven results to your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So tech companies, they're there to enable tech, right? They're there to enable performance. But what they're not is they're not accountable for performance, right? So they give you almost a platform, but they don't actually help you do it. They give you the tools, right? You've still got to be a talented artist to be able to paint, even if you've got a great brush and a great set of colors, right? A lot of other agencies, if you think of it in a funnel mentality, a lot of agencies, they focus at the top of the funnel. Okay, so the top of the funnel is the storytelling component. It's where you find most agencies do brand building, like you said, brand activation. They create their content and they tell great stories, right? It's entertaining. But then you find as you go further down the funnel and you look at how you take those people that have seen your content on a journey to want to spend money with you, the number of companies that can do that part starts to get fewer. Then you get right down to the bottom of the funnel, and the companies that are the experts at turning audience into revenue, almost zero. So what we did is when we repositioned at that inflection point, as I mentioned, we started at the top of the funnel, but we recognized that it was very competitive at the top of the funnel. When Facebook made its newsfeed algorithm changed, what it communicated largely indirectly, what it said to the market as, thanks for bringing us all of your audience. These people now belong to us. If you want to speak to them, you've got to pay us. And it was a big middle finger to most publishers in the world. Right. But they have the audience. So you have to play by their rules. what we did is we looked and we said, right, so what does the industry need? The industry needs to be able to reach their audience, top of the funnel. They need to be able to engage them, which means get them to follow, get them to like, share, comment, retweet, but also get them to move on to another destination like their website or their mailing list, etc. But what they really need is they needed those fans to spend money. Particularly if you look at sports and you think 1% of the entire market doesn't really need to make money. The rest of the market absolutely does, right? So whilst a lot of organizations, and particularly a lot of our clients, are that top 1%, but a lot of our clients are also not that 1%, and they need this. What we do in performance marketing is what's called full funnel, right? So what it means is that we know how to take people from the first touch point, where they may not have even seen any of your content before, certainly probably not spent money with you before, and we're able to take them on a journey through a process where it's content, different types of content, different types of messaging, different platforms through digital, to a point that you're now interested in a purchase. So that's what performance marketing is, but it's where the agency is focused not on what we call the output, which is the creation of content. Instead, you're focused on the outcome, which is what you want to achieve, which is largely a sale.
And what type of sales are we talking? Are we talking merchandise, retail sales? Are we talking ticket sales? What are some, because I'm very familiar with the conversions in the B2B world, but what does conversion looks like in sports?
Yeah, so in the same as B2B and B2C, right? Similar type of thing. So there's two types of main objective that any sports organization is looking for. Well, there's three, but we won't touch on the third one. But the three are grow my fan base, grow my revenues, and increase participation, which is the number of people from the grassroots up that are playing the sport, right? But we'll push participation to the side because that's a bigger agenda point.
Right.
The two marketing-based objectives are grow my fan base, grow my revenue. So those are the two things that we primarily focus on. So the fan base metrics are social followers, website traffic, database leads, market awareness, content engagement. So none of those things make money, but they are all part of the journey towards the second primary objective, which is revenue, which is game day tickets, season tickets, hospitality and VIP, retail, merchandise, subscription video, memberships, VIP packages, and then advertising revenue, right? So those are the direct objectives. And then what we have also adjacent to that is what we call indirect revenue, which is indirect means you can't measure it directly, but you can say that what you've done has led to having an impact. So indirect revenue would be an increase in sponsorship sales, an increase in monetization from an affiliate partner or a third party. So certain things that you can't measure, but it's part of the overall objective.
Makes sense. No, that clarifies it a lot. I was very curious in that. You mentioned that you guys work, with both the 1% organizations, but also the ones that do need to make money. I was wondering if you could walk me through one or two projects that you worked at WePlay that you personally have enjoyed the most, that have been the most successful. I look at your website and I'm like, these are ideal clients. Like, I know there's Barcelona, there's a lot of these people. Looking back, what are some of the the big moments that you found working with clients that you've enjoyed the most?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, been doing it for since the beginning, 8-9 years now, and I don't have any favorite clients, right? But there are some memories that I've enjoyed. So I'll give you a couple. Working with Barcelona a couple of years ago, we were brought in to help them reach the 100 million Facebook's figure. And we were part of what ended up being coined as the digital Classico. It was Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Who's going to get to 100 million Facebook followers first? So that was fun because, when we got the call it was, I think, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. We started work on the Thursday, and Real Madrid and Barcelona both achieved 100 million within the space of a few hours on the Saturday morning.
Wow.
So it was great. If you and your listeners do some quick Googling Digital Classico, you'll see that the case study is quite funny, because you've got all of the fans of both clubs all being called out to help. So you've got original Ronaldo going on his social media saying, follow Real Madrid. You've got Shakira coming out on Barcelona's side, as part of, her relationship with Piqué.
Okay, yeah.
Then you've got Rafa Nadal coming out. You've got David Beckham coming out. And it was just hilarious to be part of something where it meant so much to the club and the fans to get there first. Real Madrid, actually, they won by a few hours. So
that makes me happy, by the way.
So that's one example. I think the second one would have been recently, last year, was the World Cup at Home campaign we did with FIFA. And that's come at a time when everybody, think about last March, everybody is trying to come to terms with the situation that the world is facing, recognizing that there's not going to be much live sport last year, that people are looking for entertainment. And what we did with FIFA is conceived this campaign called World Cup at Home, which was an ability for fans to pick the favorite World Cup games by a public vote. And then FIFA, with us, we would digitize them. So all the way back to 1970, we would digitize them with new commentary and put them up on YouTube for you to watch those games. YouTube cited it as top 3 most successful campaigns on YouTube in 2020, and it got several awards. So that was also fun. And then the third one would be not soccer; it's the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Getting the opportunity to go to Las Vegas, pitch to the UFC team. I'm a big UFC fan. Then get to work on the project for the whole of the last year, and be part of something where the UFC and with their president Dana White had set a clear example of why they wanted to be the organization that showed the world how you can continue to put on live sport. And to be part of that, and what we do is we market their product called UFC Fight Pass, and to be part of that and to know that we can help grow this because the leadership at the UFC has communicated to the world that despite everything that's going on, they have found a way to continue. So yeah, just a couple of examples.
I love that. And I think that kind of leads us to COVID, which is the last section of what I want to chat with you. But before we get into that, it does seem like living in a world with no sports and no live sports, it's a world that's a bit less enjoyable, right? So anything that you guys were able to do to fill in that gap that we all had of like wanting to see games and seeing no fans in the stands or not seeing games for a while, it seems like it goes beyond, just a project that makes money for you and for the team or the organization, but also something that really helps a lot of people in a time where we're all dealing with stress and fear and we don't know what's happening, right?
Absolutely.
I love that. So I'm guessing COVID and the pandemic kind of shifted a lot of things for your organizations that are probably in stress mode. Do you see that sales conversations with these organizations change over the last year? And in what way you guys had to readjust? We talked a bit in the beginning, but I'd love to do, if we can expand on that and how sales conversations change and how you guys change internally as well.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with the Maslow hierarchy of needs?
Yep. Yeah.
So this is
studied in college for
right. So and for your listeners, so it's basically a pyramid that talks about in a crisis situation, people revert to the things that they need most, which at the start is very basic necessities to amenities like shelter, food, water, right, electricity. So entertainment and things like that is not at the top of people's list in a crisis situation. So there was a huge point last February, last March, when this started to become real of, okay, we need to focus on the most urgent needs of ourselves, because our clients are people, right? They're people themselves. They need to look at themselves first. They need to look at their core business. They need to look at their customers and what everyone needs. So there was an inflection point there. Once we started to realize the impact on revenues that this was going to have, then absolutely it changes the game, particularly as an industry. Sports is an industry that is built upon live sport, right? So it's, out of all industries, it's one of that's been hit the hardest, right? It's one of the industries that's been hit the hardest. Without live sport, the industry then had to figure out how it adapted, right? But it didn't adapt immediately. The live sport ended. All of those budgets completely paused. Every supplier, such as we are, if you're in contract, a conversation to be had about how we can either pause, terminate, or restructure the contract. So very difficult conversations for us as a business, very difficult conversations for our clients. Themselves were also probably, a lot of them were having the difficulties of considering, are they going to get made redundant?
Right.
Are they going to have to make their colleagues redundant? So all of the difficulties, so an incredible amount of empathy would be required. But there was some phasing, right? So if you think about it in the context of surviving, or survival, revival, and then thrive, right? The sports industry adapted quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But even without live sports, so we started to see this investment into original programming, redevelopment of archive content, storytelling around historical moments, those types of things. And what we were able to do was start to look at, okay, events is just one of many pillars, because there's obviously retail, right? There is sponsorship, there is subscription video, there's microtransactions, there's advertising revenue. So once we could say, well, okay, we can't do this bit for you, but we can do these other things, then we had to just start looking at how we could do those things. So we went on a journey, convincing clients of what we could still do for them. That started to escalate. So our business continued to start to grow. And we actually found that while live sport was a primary revenue stream for us pre-COVID, what we found is that actually without live sport, we are more diverse as a business.
Right.
So you might look at in hindsight, we'd look at our business and think we're actually probably too narrow focused. And so was the industry, too narrow focused on live sport. And instead it's created this conversation, and it's accelerated the conversation around why all businesses need to think like a media company.
Right. Thinking
about audience first, thinking about telling stories to create engagement, because it's engagement that drives sustainability, future-proof revenue, etc. So we've got to this point now where we like end of Q1 2021, still no live sport where there is people are allowed to go into. Obviously it's different in certain states. I know in the US as well, people are starting to go back into venues and things. Still in Europe, you know, nothing. But the industry has evolved. We as a business have evolved. In summary, I think if you have enough foresight, any crisis is an opportunity. So you can always take, you know, what is extreme adversity and trying to find what that opportunity is.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to end it, right? Challenge drives innovation, and it seems like you guys were able to do that. It seems like the industry is on the way to do that. Luca, I think we could talk about sports for hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can our listeners reach out to you or get in touch? We'll put the links wherever you want us to.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably Twitter's the best place. Most people are on Twitter. So I'm Twitter, I am Luca, IAMLUCA, and then WePlay is WePlay CO.
Perfect. Luca, thank you so much again. It was a pleasure, and talk soon.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.